Part 68. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 675. Call. Call. Finally, all four people completed the intermediate strengthening. Although the process was bumpy and painful, there was no failure in the end. However, success is success, and this strengthening process has tortured them enough. Now all four of them are lying on the ground, as if they were stupid, and they seem to be still in the abnormal pain, unable to recover. Just kept breathing out the atmosphere, giving a sense of déjà vu. Ha ha ha. These four people were in a sorry state, but Wang Ling was amused and laughed at them in a very unloyal manner. This ridicule didn't make any difference when the four people didn't come to their senses at first. But after they got used to it, Sun Dehua was the first to protest and slapped each other. Team leader, you can't be like this as a human being. This shot shocked Sun Dehua, because he took advantage of the force of the rebound and bounced up. He was so frightened that he didn't even have time to say any harmful words afterward. Holy shit, are you kidding me? After this scare, Sun Dehua had no intention of confronting Wang Ling. He just looked at his hands and felt the surge of power in his body. He felt faintly intoxicated, and the corners of his mouth slowly softened. He grinned like a 250-year-old. At this time, the other three people also woke up one after another, stood up slowly, and felt the explosive power hidden in their bodies. They also smiled like fools one by one. Erlu lowered his body slightly and jumped 3 meters high. Li Tong quickly punched in front of him. The punch was so fast that after images almost appeared, and bursts of punching wind stirred up, Gu Suanwei ran quickly inside the transfer station. When he stood up, the speed was 5 or 6 times faster than his usual fastest speed, and his physical strength seemed to be inexhaustible. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. A preliminary test showed the changes in the strength of the body. The laughter of these four people gradually changed from silent to loud and wild laughter. It felt like I was laughing with my sword in the sky and then fell asleep after laughing. After all, Wang Ling had experienced this feeling of soaring power before. He fully understood how happy these four people were at this moment, so he let them laugh for a while. After they had laughed enough, he interrupted and said, "That's almost it? I really thought, are you invincible? Hey hey." The four people giggled again, and then gradually calmed down. Sun Dehua then asked, "Team leader, did you come here like this at the beginning?" Wang Ling spread his hands, "No. There is no free lunch in this world. If you don't go through this test, how can you have a sudden surge in power? Hey, if you want to say that, I'll accept it. Only after experiencing it personally can I realize the pain of intensive transformation. It's fair to have such power." After knowing this torturous process, Sun Dehua finally no longer regarded unfair as such. These 3 words were on his lips, and now he was sincerely impressed by Wang Ling. Tch, however, Wang Ling looked at him with contempt and said directly, "Young master, will I believe you? Just wait, you will definitely come to me when you know that your power has skyrocketed in the red alert world. You're gesticulating, I won't give in until I give you a good beating." Ha ha ha. You're right. With this guy's urine, he can really do such a thing. Ha ha, this guy is a big thorn. After Gu Suanwei and the others heard this, they laughed unceremoniously. As a result, Sun Dehua blushed, scratched his head and said, "Team leader, you know me. But having said that, team leader, now we have both received medium-level strengthening injections. If we really fight, do you think you can beat me? How about we squaring off now?" Pooh. You are said to be fat and you are breathless. Can the team leader beat you? Isn't this nonsense? If you can beat the team leader, I will stand on my head to drink water. Look, this guy is so pissy. The other 3 continued to ridicule, while Wang Ling laughed and said, "There should be a limit to how much you deserve a beating. If you can get 1 beating, why do you have to get 2? Ha ha ha. The three of them laughed again, but Sundae could only scratch his head. The joke was almost over. Wang Ling clapped his hands, interrupted and said, "It should be difficult for you to accurately control this surge of power. If you return to the red alert world, you will destroy a lot of public property. If you go back, practice as soon as possible in the future and adapt to this body as soon as possible." "Yes, team leader." "Okay, nothing happens. Go back. I'll go in later." Dot. Seeing four black whirlpools appearing and sending these four people away, Wang Ling stretched and couldn't help but smile. "I was in so much pain at first, but now I see others in pain, hee, it's just like watching the fun." Uncle Hay rolled his eyes, and then reminded, "What you warned them just now is pure nonsense. They will forget it when they return to the red alert world. Then they can still destroy it as they want." Wang Ling was stunned. "Hey, it's true, I just forgot about this." "Forget it, those public properties are not worth anything anyway, so General Li Wiki won't feel bad." Tisk, tisk, shouldn't you be footing the bill? How come you just pushed it out all at once? Dot. This time, it was Wang Ling's turn to blush, but this guy was quite thick-skinned. He quickly returned to normal and cleverly avoided the topic. "Ahem, Uncle Hay, don't talk so much, continue." The next batch of strengthened people, Hu Ben, Bizor, Xiangding Tian, Chen Tong. Next, Wang Ling called a group of people's names one after another and temporarily summoned them to the different dimensional system. In this group of people, in addition to the other captains of the Wolf group and the captain of the Eagle group, Wang Ling ordered more than 20 old subordinates and came to the transfer station together. Since it is strengthening, Wang Ling actually wants to strengthen General Li Wiki, Zhao Wang, and Luo Weisky. However, the exchange of this virtual life materialization is also restricted, and the status cannot be higher than Wang Ling. Although Wang Ling is now a hero of the coalition and has great military exploits, he is still a school officer after all, and he rejected the position of commander. As a result, his status is still inferior to General Li Wiki and he cannot be summoned. Since the old general could not be strengthened, Wang Ling was cautious and did not strengthen the two deputies alone. This group of summoned personnel were all summoned for the first time, but fortunately, when they were summoned, these people already knew each other's identities, which saved Wang Ling from having to explain too much. After greeting this group of people and chatting casually, Wang Ling directly pointed out the existence of the enhancer. After this group of people learned about the enhancement agent, they did not say it was unfair like Sun Dehuo. Only Chen Tong suddenly realized and said, "I wonder why there is such a big gap between me and you. You have such a powerful tool to help you in love." "Yes, to be honest, if there is no strengthening agent, it is not yet known whether I will be your opponent in a battle. However, you should not be too envious. I have summoned you this time, and it is time for you to strengthen collectively." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 676. Team Leader, do we also have a share? Wang Ling, are you really willing to inject us with this strengthening agent? Wang Ling's statement shocked this group of people, and everyone looked in disbelief. When they heard about enhancers before, they were unmoved. In fact, it was because they had no hope of getting such a thing, so they just listened to the story. But now that they know they can use it, how can they remain calm? Of course, otherwise why would I summon you here? To chat alone. Wang Ling smiled, and then exchanged nearly 30 basic physical fitness enhancers, which were handed over to the hands of the group of people one by one, and then explained, "There are 3 levels of enhancers. I have injected the first 2 levels. Yes, I haven't dared to try the most advanced version yet. You have the basic version in your hands, with a 100% success rate, but the process is very painful, so just inject it after you think about it." Haha, No matter how painful it is, it's worth it if you can strengthen yourself into a pervert like the team leader. Isn't it? How can it hurt no matter how much it hurts? What else can't be thought of? There won't be the store after passing this village. A group of people, just like the four Sundahua people before, were a little indifferent to Wang Ling's warning and did not take the so-called pain to heart. After laughing and joking for a while, they all started to inject. No one hesitated for even a moment. Snort. Holy shit. It hurts. Ah. Not only the mentality before the injection, but also the change in attitude after the injection was almost exactly the same. When the strengthening agent began to transform, the pain actually made everyone in front of them change their expressions, their eyes widened, their faces were distorted, and they all looked different. There were constant strange noises, which made everyone look miserable. Tisk, tisk. Seeing the collective suffering of nearly 30 people, Wang Lingna gloated and hid beside him and began to sarcastically say, "I've told you that it's very painful, so why doesn't anyone believe me?" Ah! What he responded to was a few screams, and then many people couldn't bear the pain and fell to the ground, rolling wildly, even rolling to Wang Ling's feet, so that Wang Ling had to jump back a few meters. Get out of the way. Nearly 30 people were struggling ferociously, howling like ghosts and wolves, not to mention how lively it was. This time, Wang Ling had enough to see. However, after all, it was just a basic strengthening, and it did not last too long. After a few minutes of suffering, this group of people completed the strengthening. Many people fell to the ground, gasping for air, but Chen Tong, Huben, Xiangding Tian, Bizor and other team leaders and captains were only half kneeling on the ground. The perseverance of these people was far beyond that of others. Otherwise, how could they become captains or even team leaders? Although the effect of primary enhancement is significant, it is far inferior to that of intermediate enhancement. Although this group of people can feel the greatly increased power in their bodies, it has not reached the point where they are intoxicated or even unable to effectively control it. However, even if in this way, a group of people were ecstatic for a while after the break. The journey of strengthening for this group of people ended here. Wang Ling had no intention of allowing them to undergo intermediate strengthening from the beginning to the end. On the one hand, although the current points are just numbers to Wang Ling, these numbers are limited after all, and they cannot be exchanged for nearly 30 intermediate enhancers in one go. On the other hand, there is really no need to strengthen everyone to such a perverted level, because then it will be difficult to discipline them. As for the four of them, Sundahua, although there is a thorn in their side, at least these people are Wang Ling's true confidants. Even if they go through a series of strengthening and one day surpass Wang Ling, they will still be his loyal subordinates. Now that the enhancement was over, Wang Ling did not stay with this group of people for long. After they were overjoyed, he sent them back to the red alert world. Watching this group of people leave, Wang Ling finally breathed a sigh of relief. The enhancement task has been completed. With these enhancements, it is estimated that the survival probability of this group of people in the red alert world will be greatly improved. Really? Is the strengthening mission really completed? But at this time, Uncle He, who had been watching for a long time, suddenly interrupted. Wang Ling was puzzled for a moment. Isn't there? Uncle He smiled mysteriously, shook his head, and reminded, of course not. Don't forget, there are 3 types of enhancers. Even you only accepted the first 2, the most powerful advanced enhancers, but it's never been used. Advanced enhancement. Wang Ling's brows jumped at the mention of this word. Indeed, Wang Ling has been greatly strengthened twice now, and has received a large number of military experience enhancements, but he has never dared to try this advanced enhancement. After all, the 20% success rate was too low, and Wang Ling had no guarantee of success. And the nature of the system, once it fails, it means death, and it is real death in the real world. This was simply a huge gamble, but Wang Ling couldn't afford it, so he could only look away at advanced enhancements and stay away. But at this time, what does Uncle He mean by proposing this advanced enhancement? Wang Ling squinted at Uncle He, feeling slightly wary. And Uncle He didn't keep it off for too long. He directly pointed out, I know you are afraid of the success rate of advanced enhancement. After all, the cost of failure is too high and almost unbearable. But don't forget, you are not the only one with advanced enhancement. Can be injected. The 4 Sundahua people you selected before should be your absolutely trustworthy confidants, right? Uncle He, do you want to inject them? Wang Ling's eyes gradually became sharp. But Uncle He seemed to be unaware of it and continued to express his thoughts, that's right. Since you don't dare to inject yourself, you can use them to test it. Although the success rate is only 20%, but if there are more people testing, there will always be success. These 4 people are all your right-hand assistants. Once the advanced enhancement is successful, they will be your most powerful helpers, whether it is the real world or the red alert world. Ichi, a dragon is better than 4 tigers. Uncle He, that's enough. After Uncle He finished speaking his thoughts, Wang Ling's face turned ugly. He almost glared at Uncle He and responded in a reprimanding tone, why did I inject them with strengthening agents? I don't want them to survive. The success rate of advanced enhancement is only 20%. Not to mention that none of the 4 of them has a high chance of success. Even if one of them can succeed, they can't try it. They are all my subordinates, I don't need them how powerful they are, I just need them to live well, that's enough. The idea of 1 dragon and 4 tigers is pure nonsense. Injecting them with advanced enhancements is simply an experiment with human lives. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 677. Stupid. However, in the face of Wang Ling's statement, Uncle He seemed a little annoyed and scolded him back, boy, don't forget, you are the core of the entire Red Alert world, and all other existences are foil. Don't be hesitant just because of these foils. If you want to be strong, you should be ruthless. Those who use human lives for experiments are just programs. To put it bluntly, they are all your tools. Treat programs and tools as life as partners, it's just stupid. Regarding Wang Ling's statement, Uncle He actually felt that he hated iron. However, Wang Ling insisted on sticking to this bottom line, but said that he would never cross it. Uncle He was annoyed, but Wang Ling was also angry, and directly responded, program? Tool. Haha, Uncle He, you have an artificial intelligence brain, and you still have it. I really can't turn a corner. Sundahu and the others each have their own thoughts, their own character and life, beliefs and bottom lines. With such existence, you want me to treat them as tools? I can't do it. Humph. Now that he had reached this level, Uncle He stopped coddling Wang Ling and scolded him with a cold snort, how about calling you stupid? No, it would be more appropriate to call you indecisive. It's hard to imagine that in the world of Red Alert, you fought through obstacles, killed countless enemies, and had countless so-called human lives on your hands. I thought that after all these trainings, your mind would be mature enough, but I didn't expect that you were still so indecisive. It's just a different stance. At this point, Wang Ling gradually calmed down after taking several heavy breaths, laughed sarcastically, and then asked, Uncle He, stop trying to interfere with my judgment. If you still want to continue, then please answer me clearly first. As an artificial intelligence brain in a different dimensional system, you have human thinking habits. So who are you? Are you a program or a life? This question was a big deal for Uncle He. Putting the question aside, Uncle He, who was still aggressive at first, was stunned for an instant. His mouth was stuck, but he couldn't say any unnecessary words. After finally choking Uncle He, Wang Ling was too lazy to continue debating such a meaningless topic. He simply opened the door to the red alert world and stepped in on his own. And when he entered the red alert world, it took a long time for Uncle He to recover. He looked at the door connecting the two worlds and said to himself, I didn't expect that this melon boy could actually come up with such a sharp idea. The problem is that as an artificial intelligence brain, I am just a program. With autonomous human thinking, it is not an exaggeration to say that I am a life. But, specifically, should I be a program or a life? Speaking of this, Uncle He also let out a long sigh. Perhaps, I can only be regarded as a program. Everything I do is the setting of the system. The word life is still too far away and too extravagant for me. This question Wang Ling left really embarrassed Uncle He. But for this kind of question, Wang Ling actually had a very clear answer in his mind. Indeed, as for artificial intelligence, it is just a program. However, this artificial intelligence has evolved human thinking and emotions, and it can already step into the ranks of alternative life forms. Just like Sundahu and others in the Red Alert world, Wang Ling knew very well that they were all programs in the Red Alert world, but how could there be such a real program? They are vivid characters with personalities, beliefs, and bottom lines. If they did not come from the world of Red Alert, Wang Ling could basically treat them as real people in reality. This kind of character, like Uncle He, is essentially a program, but he also has a life. However, Uncle He himself got into a dead end and regarded Sundahu and others as mere procedures, so Wang Ling directly raised this problem. As for what Uncle He will be struggling with and what answer he will come up with, Wang Ling really doesn't want to ask any more. Now he is already lying on the bed in the temporary command center of the Red Alert World Holy City, and has been struggling for a while. Then he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Of course, he was asleep, but the base was not very peaceful. Some of the people who had just received basic strengthening were on duty. Now that Wang Ling has returned to the Red Alert World, time has begun to flow. Although the memory in the transfer station has not been preserved, the physical strengthening is real. This group of people almost immediately felt the surge in power in their bodies, and everyone became confused. However, this group of people obviously didn't think much about the power they got for no reason. Some people just felt complacent for a while and continued to do their work honestly. However, some people started to get angry and took advantage of the surge in strength to challenge others one after another. After winning several games in a row, they became quite swollen. Of course, after all, it is just basic strengthening. No matter how much these people do, it is just a small-scale commotion and does not attract attention. As for Sundahu and the other 4 people who were injected with intermediate enhancements, they have now rested and are not aware of the enhancements for the time being. After all, the Holy City war zone has been calmed down, and Wang Ling's temporary base does not need too much vigilance and tension, so even Li Tong and Gu Suanwu are taking a rest. But it's okay, it's so late at night, it saves these 4 people trouble. Wang Ling woke up as usual, stretched out after getting up, and after a long sleep, he just woke up and was still a little confused for the time being. Boom. Bang 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 bang. Hiss. However, just when he was about to walk out of the temporary command post, go out for a walk, do some simple morning exercises and have breakfast, he suddenly heard several strange noises in a row. He hurried over and found that it was Li Tong and Gu Suanwu. One of them accidentally broke his bed, and the other was that he accidentally tore a huge gap in his uniform when he was wearing it. After all, without that memory, these 2 people are still in a trap. Why is this bed so brittle? I just pressed it. My clothes are the same. They are just shaking. Why are they like this? Hey. Something's wrong. Why do I feel like my body is full of explosive power? Me too. It's strange. After a good sleep, did you gain muscle? Dot. Listening to the conversation between the two people, Wang Ling suddenly felt dumbfounded. However, he did not point out the strengthening agent. He just said that the sudden increase in strength was a good thing and let them practice well and control their current strength. After talking to these two people, Wang Ling couldn't wait to leave the command post. There were 4 people who received intermediate strengthening last night. The other 2 Bang Chui were sleeping in the military camp. What kind of joke would they make? In fact, those 2 people really made a joke. As soon as Wang Ling went out and came to the military camp, he found that the 2 people were already being watched. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 678. Brother Hu, are you tired of being a soldier? You don't even want your own treasure. Ha ha ha, hearing what you said, those who didn't know it would have thought that Brother Tiger had castrated himself. Bah! Isn't the barrel of a gun a treasure to us? And Brother Donkey, are you too inflated? You think no one can kill you? Even your helmet is cracking. I've only been shot too few times. I don't know how powerful the guns are. Dot. A group of people were watching Sun Dehu and Erlu, pointing and joking. The scene was quite lively. When Wang Ling saw this, he couldn't help but move forward. When the peripheral mobilization soldiers saw him, they saluted quickly. After Wang Ling returned the salute, he asked, "Why is it so lively?" A mobilized soldier suppressed a smile and replied, "Who knows, Brother Tiger and Brother Donkey took the wrong medicine?" When they got up early in the morning, one broke his submachine gun and the other flattened his helmet. Dot. Wang Ling was speechless for a while after hearing this. He knew that these 4 people could not control the surge of power and would definitely damage public property when they returned to the Red Alert world. However, he did not expect that one of these 2 people broke the gun and the other flattened the helmet. This hard-working guy actually made them laugh. After looking through the crowd, sure enough, one of the 2 men was holding 2 submachine guns and the other was holding a flattened helmet. They were blushing with embarrassment under the laughter of everyone. Wang Ling knew the reason for this, but he pretended not to know and said jokingly, "You two, are you so full of energy that you have no place to use it?" Ha ha ha. After hearing this, the others laughed even more happily, but Sun Dehu and Erlu were extremely embarrassed. After smiling bitterly for a while, Sun Dehu said, "Team leader, I don't know what's going on. When I woke up today, my body felt awkward, as if it was full of explosive power. I don't know what's going on, so I habitually picked up the gun. I moved around, but the gun suddenly broke. Me too, me too. Every morning I habitually squeeze my helmet, just to vent and wake up. But who knew that today it was like I had taken the wrong medicine? I don't know where the strength came from to control me. If you can't stop it, it will be like this." Erlu also hurriedly agreed, but their explanation made the people around them laugh even more. After Wang Ling laughed, he simply stretched out his hand and tried his hand with Sun Dehu and Erlu. The strength of the 2 of them has skyrocketed, and they are still confused now, but they happily agreed to take advantage of this opportunity to bully Wang Ling. However, although he was also strengthened at the intermediate level, Wang Ling also had many experience enhancements from various types of arms, and his overall strength was a bit stronger than these 2. As a result, they both screamed when Wang Ling squeezed them, and their strength gradually swelled. The mentality was greatly affected. Although they knew that Sun Dehu would definitely look for trouble, it would be better to give them a heads up in advance to keep them honest for a while. My hands are really strong. I've always been called a pervert by you, and today you finally became a pervert too. After the suppression, Wang Ling warned with a smile, "The surge in strength is a good thing. Don't worry about it too much." However, You also have to give me the strength to adapt to this body as soon as possible. I am an exception and have a strong endurance, but you are just like this. Contact with other people may lead to death. Therefore, you are not allowed to come into contact with anyone else before you have completely controlled this body power. Hey, I got it, team leader. The two agreed repeatedly, and the embarrassment of breaking the gun barrel and flattening the helmet was quietly forgotten. After the warning, Wang Ling was too lazy to bother, turned around and left the military camp, starting a new day in the world of Red Alert. After the Holy City war zone was pacified, there was no fighting in the entire war zone for the time being. Wang Ling was enjoying his leisure time. He just walked around every day and took a look at the battle conditions in other war zones. But today, Sun Dehua and the other three were very busy. How could this surge in power be so easy to control? As a result, during this day, the four people destroyed a lot of public property and made a lot of jokes in order to exercise their control skills. Compared with the four of them, Chen Tong, Hu Ben and other people who had received basic strengthening injections were not so conspicuous. After all, there were four more perverted people, and their increased power was no longer enough. After exercising like this, it was night soon. After a whole day of adaptation, the four of them, Sun Dehua, finally gradually took control of their current bodies and were able to freely control their body strength. Wang Ling's ban was subsequently lifted. And their physical strength and overall quality in all aspects suddenly increased sharply. After adapting, the ban was lifted. What will they do? Of course it's a fight. That night, after dinner, these four pieces of material became the focus. A group of people from the Wolf group, and even some members of the Eagle group, lit a bonfire and gathered around to watch the performance of these four people. All onlookers can come forward to challenge, and the loser must shout "Hello, Uncle." In the army, who will obey whom if they are strong-blooded? Seeing how arrogant they were, there was an endless stream of people challenging them, but none of them could win. In the end, they could only say "Hello, Uncle" in frustration. Erlu, Li Tong, and Gu Suanwu were better off, not so competitive, and would only accept challenges when someone named them. However, Sun Dehua was an out-and-out thorn in the side. He took over most of the challenges. Even when the fight came to the back, no one wanted to fight. He actually randomly selected people and took the initiative to provoke them. Those who were called out were not willing to accept his provocation. Many of them stepped forward, were beaten up, and then retreated after admitting defeat. Even the captains Huben, Bizor, and others were not spared. Although several people in Huben were also injected with basic strengthening, and their physical fitness improved a lot, the intermediate strengthening was much stronger than the basic strengthening. In the end, they all lost, but their words of "Hello, Uncle" were ignored. Past. After winning for so long, Sun Dehua was really inflated. After losing several captains in a row, he actually provoked Wang Ling, who was watching the battle from a distance. "Hey, team leader. What are you looking at, boy? That's what I'm talking about. Come on, let me teach you a lesson today. Damn it, I betrayed you." Wang Ling was also very happy with him. He had already guessed that this guy would definitely challenge him, but he didn't expect it to be so arrogant. "Team leader, beat him. Team leader, don't be a coward. Come out for us and beat him until he can't take care of himself. Team leader, come on." The group of people who had been bullied by this guy before suddenly became interested and started making noises. Now that Sun Dehua is too strong, it is estimated that only the team leader can suppress him. Anyway, he had already been prepared for a fight, and Wang Ling simply jumped into the battle circle because he was so warm-hearted. The two sides didn't even have a prelude and just started fighting. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 679. I have to say that after the intermediate strengthening, Sun Dehua is indeed much stronger, and this guy is also an elite who has experienced hundreds of battles. He has been tempered in blood and fire, and is very familiar with Jungzinkan. Every move is when fighting, he is very powerful and tricky. If he is not treated with caution, Wang Ling may capsize in the gutter. However, Sun Dehua was ferocious, but Wang Ling was even more perverted. When he faced two stronger obstacles than him, he could win together, let alone Sun Dehua. No matter how fierce Sun Dehua's moves were and how swift and cunning his movements were, he could never hit Wang Ling with any punch or kick. Wang Ling, on the other hand, was not in a hurry to take action. He was just like a loach when he fought against the roadblock, and he was always able to cleverly dodge these attacks. However, the difference is that when fighting against two blockers, Wang Ling had no choice but to adapt to the battle by evading in this way, and looked for gaps between the two blockers to wait for opportunities to counterattack. But now when he was fighting against Sun Dehua, he was just having a playful attitude. When he was avoiding, he always had a playful smile on his face. Holy shit! As he continued to hit, Sun Dehua was also a little confused. His punches were very heavy. If he really hit Wang Ling would probably not be able to withstand it. However, the premise is that the hit must be successful. This is like a loach. No matter how hard you attack, you can't hit it. How about hitting it with a hammer? Okay, let's end it when you've had enough fun. Just when Sun Dehua was getting more and more frightened, Wang Ling suddenly changed his moves and hit the joints of his limbs, interrupting the combo. Then he threw left and right uppercuts on Sun Dehua's face. Finally, he turned around and kicked Sun Dehua to the side, sending him flying more than 20 meters away. Boom! Flying more than 20 meters, Sun Dehua was like a sandbag, flying away from the crowd, hitting the ground with a bang, and spitting out a pool of blood. Kicking someone so far away, you can imagine how violent this kick was. Even Sun Dehua, who had been strengthened at the intermediate level, was seriously injured by this kick, and his internal organs were somewhat shattered. Wow! After seeing this battle scene with their own eyes, until the final result appeared, all the spectators were shocked. He's still the team leader. Awesome, awesome. You really deserve to be the team leader. Yeah, brother who suddenly became so perverted. I didn't expect the team leader to be even more perverted. Hee, but brother Tiger is quite strong, at least now he can compete with the team leader. This fight was wonderful. The most important thing is that brother Tiger got beaten. Ha ha ha, let's relieve our anger. After this group of people were shocked, they all commented and seemed to be still thinking about the battle just now. For a while, no one paid attention to Sun Dehua. In fact, Sun Dehua didn't need to worry about it. In this red alert world, elite soldiers had very strong self-healing abilities. As long as they were not fatally injured, they could recover if given some time. What's more, the intermediate enhancer has strengthened this function and strengthened his body abnormally. Now Sun Dehua is really like an invincible little strongman. It was precisely because of this that Wang Ling's last kick was delivered without any scruples. If it had been anyone else, he would have died on the spot long ago after receiving this kick. Ignoring other people's comments, Wang Ling put his foot down, raised his chin towards Sun Dehua, who was struggling in the distance, and said provocatively, "Hey, weren't you awesome just now? Are you still fighting?" Sun Dehua didn't stand up for a while. He just kept lying down in a funny posture and raised his hands. "I give up." "Team leader, why are you so perverted?" "Ha ha ha, I'm scared." "He's scared." "Is that all you need to do if you admit defeat? Don't forget there is still a bet." "Say that quickly, we are all listening." Wang Ling actually didn't care about the bet, but the other soldiers were unhappy and started making noises. At this time, Sun Dehua also took a brief rest. With the help of his rapid self-healing ability, his internal injuries had been partially healed. He finally sat up slowly, His face darkened as he listened to the booing, but he did not refuse. "Uncle. Good. Hey. Good nephew." A group of soldiers responded, and Sundahu was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "It's none of your business, it's not for you." Ahem. This anxiety also caused internal injuries. Sundahu coughed violently for a while before he could finish his words. At the transfer station, Wang Ling asserted that Sundahu would definitely challenge him in the Red Alert world, and now it has come true. After being taught a lesson by Wang Ling, Sundahu also realized that it hurt. He had just swelled up and was already deflated, but it really made others laugh at him. No matter what, now Wang Ling's goal has been achieved. The 4 people closest to him have been successfully injected with intermediate enhancers and adapted to this new body. Even other acquaintances have been injected with basic enhancers. In the future, the chance of survival on the battlefield will also be greatly improved. If there are still sacrifices, then it is no longer within Wang Ling's control. Who told this to be a war in the first place? The next thing to do is to continue waiting to determine the target theater. In the past few days, Wang Ling has had enough rest, and PoortoRich has also been thinking about it for some time. It is almost time to make a decision. Of course, if you follow the established script, this is indeed the case, but the day after Sundahu and others successfully mastered the intermediate enhanced body, something suddenly happened on the battlefield. This morning, Wang Ling was finishing his stroll as usual, casually watching the battles in other war zones on electronic videos. Yuri's base is very good at defense, and the annoying mind control ability is extremely tricky and difficult to break. As for the coalition and allied forces, they have received Wang Ling's intelligence and suggestions, and have exchanged practical military units with each other. It is difficult for Yuri's troops to break through the defense, so even after so long the war, the situation in other theaters is still stalemate. Wang Ling was not surprised by this, but when he was watching one of the war zones, a violent buzzing sound suddenly came from the electronic map, which was somewhat similar to an alarm and a call for help. Subconsciously, Wang Ling thought that his base in the Holy City war zone was under enemy attack. However, he hurriedly checked the electronic map and found nothing, so he quickly mobilized the electronic map and quickly switched to other war zones. After several successive changes, the Eastern Plains theater was finally locked. Because among all the war zones, this is the only one where something happened to the electronic map. The Allied spy satellites seemed to have been blown up. The entire map was filled with unexplored black areas. Only places where the troops of the 2 armies had been active could pass through the electronic map. Map observed. Within the scope of this activity, Wang Ling suddenly discovered hundreds of wild orcs in the coalition base, frantically hunting all the surrounding coalition tanks. In the Allied base, above the visible video, there seems to be a Yuri avatar made of dust, which is slowly dispersing. In the base, a large area of buildings has been blown up, and many Allied troops have also been directly controlled. The people inside the base were firing like crazy at the surroundings indiscriminately. Sorry, the update is a little late. I went out early in the morning and didn't expect to come back so late. I just got home and I hurriedly updated. I have to work overtime again in the evening to make up for what I missed today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 680. Ouch. Ouch. Ha 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 ha. Ouch. Boom. Boom. Da da da. This incident threw the entire Eastern Plains war zone into chaos. The hundreds of wild orcs attacked all the coalition troops and even buildings within the target range without fear of death. A single orc is easy to deal with, but too many of these types of troops can be a devastating disaster. The entire coalition base quickly collapsed under such a crazy impact. The Allies were not feeling well either. The controlled troops were like crazy, attacking all Allied forces indiscriminately. With the participation of Yuri's armored troops who originally invaded, the entire Allied base was in a state of chaos. This is a state of being exhausted and the situation is very bad. Seeing this, Wang Ling couldn't help but grit his teeth. Super weapon. Isn't it? It is the super weapons of the Mind Empire, the genetic mutators and the mind controllers that caused this devastating situation. This spiritual empire is ambitious and attempts to control humans all over the world. There is no bottom line in what they do. Super weapons that are taboo weapons in the Red Alert world can be used without any scruples. During the original joint meeting, Wang Ling expressed fear of this, and even proposed a corresponding preventive plan to disperse the troops and build a large number of crack generators for confusion. These days, this plan seems to have had an effect, but it has never been successful. Seeing the Mind Empire using super weapons again, over time, the coalition and allied forces inevitably relaxed some of their vigilance. However, not using it does not mean that the Empire of Mind has forgotten this big killer weapon. Just like the current Eastern Plains war zone, after letting down its vigilance, it was directly attacked by two super weapons. The balance scene that was originally evenly matched suddenly became one-sided. Under such impact, the two bases seemed likely to collapse at any time. Wang Ling. Just when Wang Ling was impatient, General Li Weiqi's voice suddenly came from the radio. General. Have you seen the situation in the Eastern Plains? I saw it. The situation is not good now. Both bases are urgently asking for help. However, the war zones are too far apart after all. We are the only one here at the moment, the closest to the Eastern Plains. You should immediately lead the Wolf Group to rush to rescue. If you can save no matter how much you lay down. Even if we don't have time, we must annihilate all these Yuri troops. Yes, General. The rescue order was issued quickly. After the radio communication was interrupted, Wang Ling did not immediately summon all members of the Wolf Group. Instead, he ordered the tank factory to urgently produce a batch of anti-aircraft tracked vehicles. The production of this anti-aircraft crawler vehicle naturally takes a long time. The war is urgent. Wang Ling does not have the time to wait here. When the tank factory is busy in an emergency, he hurriedly selects more than 20 elites. The mobilized troops, including Sun Dehu and Erlu, two intermediate-level enhanced perverts, boarded 6 elite anti-aircraft tracked vehicles, and then ordered all the armed helicopters of the Wolf Group to serve as vanguards with them and rush to the destination first. The Eastern Plains Theater rushed for reinforcements. The war in this Red Alert world is very different from the real combat in reality. Usually the combat time is very short and the battle is very fast. The confrontation and rushing stages are the most time-consuming overall. The war in the Eastern Plains war zone happened so suddenly that it was not clear how long they could hold on. If it was a large-scale dispatch of all members of the Wolf Group, the daylilies would probably be cold by the time they got there. Wang Ling could only lead the team himself, relying on the superior maneuverability of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicles and armed helicopters to take the lead and rush to the battlefield as quickly as possible. Of course, even so, the possibility that the Eastern Plains war zone could hold out until they arrived was too small. But these are not things that Wang Ling can decide. Now he can only settle down, stay in the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle, and observe the battle situation while driving. In the electronic video, the war on the Allied side was fierce and stalemate. Although the psychic storm of the Soul Empire was terrifying, under the massive destruction in an instant, the number of troops that were controlled by the Way was only a small number. The most troublesome ones were those who were originally Yuri's armor during the attack. However, with its various defensive buildings and other troops, the Allied base was able to compete with it, and it was impossible to tell the winner in a short period of time. However, things were miserable for the coalition forces. Although there were also a large number of defensive buildings and even armored units in the base, the number of wild orcs that had been genetically mutated was too great to cope with, and a large number of armored units were destroyed. Many defensive buildings were dismantled, and the entire base's defense force quickly collapsed under such a crazy impact. Finally, after a period of time, all the defensive buildings were dismantled, and the group of wild orcs dispersed and dismantled the main building, as if they were going to take advantage of this opportunity to completely destroy the entire coalition base. However, there were some episodes in the middle. Under the overall situation of joint operations, nuclear reactors were established in every coalition base. This base is no exception. The wild orcs seemed to be unaware of the horror of this thing. Surrounded him and punched him, and after a period of continuous bombardment, the entire nuclear reactor exploded with a bang. The nuclear reactor itself was equivalent to a small nuclear bomb. After it exploded, a wide range of shock waves and nuclear radiation spread out on the spot. A large number of wild beasts around were also turned into dense water in an instant, and the area was cleared in an instant. Orcs. Of course, this was also the last picture Wang Ling saw from the electronic map. The nuclear reactor, also known as the nuclear power plant, is the main source of electricity in a war zone. After the explosion, the entire eastern plains lost power instantly. Both the coalition radar and the Allied Air Command lost power. Electronic maps and electronic videos immediately it became pitch black, and the entire eastern plain seemed to be sealed off. Unless the outside world arrived here in person, it would be impossible to obtain any information here. Hateful. After interrupting his observation, Wang Ling clenched his fists in anger, wishing he could teleport to the battlefield of the eastern plains and shoot all the wild orcs with his own hands. Sun Dehu and others were in an anti-aircraft crawler vehicle with him. They also checked the situation in the eastern plains war zone on electronic video, and their faces were not very good now. At this time, Erlu was rarely joking, and for a moment he was reliable and said with relief, "Team leader, we are already on our way as fast as possible. There is no point in being anxious now. It is better to adjust our state and rush to the eastern plains. It's time to have a good fight." Yes. Wang Ling really heard the sentence and let out a sigh of relief. The electronic video is also blind. There is no point in rushing now. I hope we can make it in time. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 681. No wonder Wang Ling would sigh like this. Although the Holy City War Zone is closest to the Eastern Plains War Zone, that is only relative. In fact, the distance between the two war zones is also very far. With the speed of armed helicopters and anti-aircraft crawlers, you need to run at top speed for several hours to get there. However, there is really no choice at this stage but to race against time. In this way, a group of armed helicopters and 6 anti-aircraft crawlers marched across various areas as if they were imminent, leaving hurried figures on the roads and mountains and woods along the way. Ouch! Ouch! Oh ha 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 ha! Ouch! In the Eastern Plains War Zone, the current situation has become out of control. As for the coalition base, although the nuclear reactor explosion killed a group of wild orcs, the number of these genetically mutated wild orcs is too many after all. The group that was killed in the explosion was only 1/5 of them at best, and the remaining hundreds of wild orcs were still sparing no effort to dismantle the coalition base. The coalition base has lost all resistance and can only watch its buildings being demolished, leaving only the sad and indignant sighs of its commanders. Boom! 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 Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Da da da! On the other hand, the current situation of the Allied base is getting worse and worse. All the defense forces were originally mobilized, and with the help of the defense buildings of their own base, even if they were bombarded by the psychic storm, they could still deal with the attacking Yuri troops. Even vaguely still have the upper hand. However, now that the Allied forces have joined forces, most of the electricity used by the Allied bases comes from the nuclear reactors in the same theater. Now that the nuclear reactor burst, even the Allied bases have lost their power supply, except for the machine gun bunkers. In addition, all the defensive buildings lost power, and the situation that could still be maintained quickly deteriorated. The defense forces in the base showed a retreating posture under the fierce attack of Yuri's troops. Taking advantage of this momentum, Yuri's troops increased their offensive intensity, pushing all the way, annihilating a large number of Allied guards, and continuously demolishing various buildings along the way. Even the Allied base command post exploded under this fierce attack. Go. The commander died in battle, and the entire Allied base suddenly felt a sense of panic without a leader. The already declining guard troops became even more panicked. However, although the commander died in battle, it was clear that the remaining Allied guards did not give up resistance. Under the temporary command of a surviving field team leader, the remaining guards continued to resist without fear of death. During this period, Yuri's offensive force also suffered a lot of losses. After bombing the command post, the original team had been decimated, and its combat effectiveness was sharply reduced. As a result, under the desperate resistance of the remaining Allied guards, unexpectedly, he failed to completely annihilate them, but his own troops were depleted. In this battle, the coalition base was completely destroyed, but the Allies finally succeeded in annihilating the enemy and saving the base. However, the price was too high. Most of the functional buildings in the base were damaged, and the remaining buildings were basically paralyzed due to lack of power. Even the command post was blown up and the commander died in the battle. Although the field team leader could temporarily replace this position, the morale of the army had been severely damaged after all. What's more, after this battle, the original guard strength has been reduced to less than 40%. Looking at the base in disarray after the war, the remaining officers and soldiers were filled with a sense of sadness and powerlessness. The team leader also checked and found that the combat vehicle factory in the base is still alive, but the combat laboratory has been knocked down. The combat vehicle factory can now only produce mining vehicles, multifunctional infantry vehicles, grizzly tanks, and remote control tanks. Tanks and invader fighter jets too. Indeed, the control center is still there, but without power, the remote-controlled tanks have no power, which has become a burden for the Allied base. Well, seeing this situation, the team leader couldn't help but let out a long sigh. "Team leader, what should we do?" a team leader asked anxiously. The team leader was also shrewd. After thinking for a while, he replied, "The general died in the battle, but we are still alive. The life and death of the base is now in our hands. We cannot give up on ourselves. But team leader, the command post is gone. It's impossible for us to rebuild the base." "Yes, we can't rebuild the base by virtue of our strength, so we should treat it specially in special times. If we can hold on for a while longer," the general has urgently asked for help before he died in the battle. "As long as we hold on until the reinforcements arrive, it will be victory. Special treatment during special times." This team leader has obviously studied systematically with the commander and knows what is most important in temporary operations. After deciding to stick to it, he quickly issued a series of orders to appease the remaining soldiers and dismantle them. Some buildings in the base were built. The command post is gone and there is no ability to rebuild various buildings. Why don't you cherish the remaining buildings and dismantle them yourself? This is actually the cleverness of this team leader. It is true that they are unable to rebuild, but many of the remaining buildings are not only useless for their defense, but will actually hinder them, especially those that consume electricity. Nowadays, the base's defense force is extremely weak and it is in urgent need of power support. It is given special treatment during special times. Under his order, the engineers quickly dismantled the ore refiner and command center, freeing up a large part of the power load. But even so, the power in the base still could not be restored, so the disassembly continued, and 2 anti-aircraft missiles disappeared one after another. Then, another light prism tower disappeared, and then even the crack generator in the base was forced to be dismantled. After demolishing so many buildings in a row, the team leader was very reluctant to give up, but there was really nothing he could do now. During the dismantling process, the team leader felt quite conflicted. He missed the Allied forces' nuclear reactor. In the past, the nuclear reactor provided power. No matter how many buildings the Allies built, they did not have to worry about power problems. But precisely because they had relied too much on nuclear reactors before, there were not many ordinary power plants built in the base. Something happened to the coalition forces, and the power supply to the Allies was directly interrupted. Of course, there are not many ordinary power plants, but after all, some have been built. Now that so many power-consuming buildings have been dismantled, the power supply has finally been restored, and the remaining light prism towers are all in operation, providing security for the base. A glimmer of security. In addition, the incomplete electronic map was also restored in an instant. With this convenience, the team leader quickly observed the coalition base. This sight made him immediately change his expression. I saw that where the coalition base was originally located, there was no trace of any coalition troops or buildings, leaving only pitted traces of war. And the culprits that caused this tragic situation, the hundreds of wild orcs, were now moving towards their base with great enthusiasm. The base is marching together. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 682. Hundreds of wild orcs acting together, what kind of scene is that? Looking at it as a whole, it is completely black and has a great visual impact. Coupled with the ferocious and exaggerated appearance of the wild orcs, it was as if the god of death was running around and the undead were surging. It stung all the visual nerves of the remaining allied guards, and a deep sense of despair and powerlessness emerged. Indeed, a single wild orc has very little influence, but quantitative changes lead to qualitative changes. If there are too many ants, they can kill an elephant, let alone this wild orc. A collective attack by hundreds of orcs would be an epic disaster for a complete allied base, let alone this incomplete base. Team leader, are we doomed? The captain who spoke before has now become a little numb in despair. The team leader had already felt despair deep in his heart, but now that he was temporarily commanding someone, he forced himself not to show it. He stared back and said, "Don't you dare say such depressing words to me. Don't forget, yes, the general asked for help urgently before his death, and now the reinforcements are on their way." But the team leader was not stupid. After hearing this, he looked sad and said bluntly, "Team leader, don't deceive yourself. The war zones are too far apart. The group of wild orcs can probably arrive in 3 hours. I'm afraid it's too late for reinforcements here. There's enough time." The team leader was furious, and he shouted loudly, which startled the captain, "Believe me, I said it will be in time, and it will be in time. Pass on what I say, and resist with all your might. Reinforcements will arrive soon." "Yes, team leader." The captain vaguely seemed to realize the team leader's intention. After responding, he sighed and walked away. Can the reinforcements really arrive? To be honest, this team leader had almost no hope. He was just trying to encourage people with unreconciled energy and persevere. However, the other soldiers did not know that the reinforcements would arrive soon. The originally scattered military morale gradually gathered together, and the fighting spirit became even higher. Maintaining this fighting spirit, the remaining soldiers and tanks in the base quickly deployed their defenses and prepared for the battle. At the same time, they were also looking forward to reinforcements in their hearts. During this period, the team leader also issued an order for the tank factory to urgently produce multifunctional infantry vehicles and sharpen their guns before the battle. It is true that this multifunctional infantry vehicle is not resistant to beatings. An ordinary orc can destroy one with 3 punches at best. However, this multifunctional infantry vehicle is cheaper than the Grizzly tank after all, and the missiles it fires are much better than those of the Grey Bear tank. The Bear tank is more lethal to infantry. At this point, all we can do is try our best to produce more such vehicles. Time passed like this minute by minute. Looking at the group of wild orcs on the electronic map that were approaching, the Allied guards were beating drums in their hearts. At the same time, they were constantly watching the entire war zone, hoping for reinforcements to appear. Figure. However, an hour passed and no reinforcements were seen. 2 hours passed, and there were still no reinforcements. Seeing the orc army getting closer and closer, the Allied guards felt a chill in their hearts. How could they resist without reinforcements? In the blink of an eye, another half-hour passed, and the orc army was less than 20 minutes away from the Allied base. At this time, these Allied guards realized that the so-called reinforcements might be just a psychological comfort. Thinking of this, almost all the guards gave out bitter smiles. It seemed that they would not survive today. Buzz buzz. Buzz buzz. However, just when this desperate mood permeated the entire base, more than 20 red light spots suddenly broke into the edge of the electronic map of the Eastern Plains war zone, quickly rushing through the unexplored dark area, just like a machine. Like a detector, it detected a bright avenue all the way, passed by extremely quickly, and finally arrived at the sky above the Allied base and stopped. The Wolf Group's vanguard army, those armed helicopters, are here. Reinforcements. It's reinforcements. Why are they not reinforcements from the Allied forces, but from the Allied forces? I don't know, no matter what kind of army it is, as long as it is a friendly army. Ha ha ha, maybe you don't have to die today. Reinforcements are coming. Reinforcements are coming. The arrival of more than 20 armed helicopters also brought hope of survival to this originally hopeless Allied base. After seeing it, a group of officers and soldiers jumped up one after another. Even the team leader rushed over and looked at the armed helicopter in the sky side. The cooperation with the coalition forces is not a loss. At the moment of life and death, it was the reinforcements from the coalition forces that arrived first, right? Is there anything else? Just as he was sighing, he suddenly discovered that several more red light spots appeared in the direction in which the armed helicopters were originally coming. They flew over at an exaggerated speed and finally stopped in the Allied base, shockingly. They are the 6 elite anti-aircraft tracked vehicles of the Wolf Group. Of course, these anti-aircraft tracked vehicles were just transportation tools. After they stopped, Wang Ling directly led a group of elite mobilization troops to get out of the vehicle. After riding in the car for so long, the bodies of a group of people became a little stiff, and they started moving without hesitation. Wang Ling paid more attention to the scene. He glanced around and found an Allied soldier with the rank of colonel. He politely gave a military salute and introduced himself, Allied Forces Base No. 1, leader of the Wolf Group. Wang Ling, come to our aid. This colonel was naturally the previous team leader. He was excited but polite in return and introduced himself, Allied Base No. 3, team leader of the second team, Zhang Qiang. Thank you, team leader Wang Ling. Rush to the rescue. Wang Ling nodded slightly and observed from the electronic map that the wild orcs were probably less than 10 minutes away from here. Then he breathed a sigh of relief and said angrily, hurry up, we are finally here, come on. If the coalition base cannot be saved, then these wild orcs must pay the price of death to repay it. Team leader Zhang Qiang gritted his teeth and nodded, but the pessimistic team leader before said with a grimace, reinforcements are coming, but why is this all there? When Wang Ling heard this, he turned around and asked, why, brother, does he look down on us? Zhang Qiang hurriedly interrupted, team leader Wang Ling, I'm sorry, they are too sensitive. After all, this situation is really unfavorable for us. Of the nearly 300 orcs, I'm afraid only Agent Tanya and Tenet takes more than one SEAL team to stop him. But no matter what the outcome, I, Zhang Qiang, will always be grateful to team leader Wang Ling for his help, even if we die together. Are you so pessimistic? Wang Ling asked playfully. Sun Dehua directly pointed it out with a smile, who will die with you? We are here to fight, not to die. You Agent Tanya are strong, but our team leader is more than 10 times stronger than Agent Tanya, aren't they just a bunch of wild orcs? Isn't it embarrassing to see how miserable you are? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 683. Again, although the two armies are united, there are still some conflicts between them. A group of Allied officers and soldiers were grateful to the Wolf Group for their rescue and did not show any hostility. However, Sun Dehua's opening revealed his feelings for the Allied forces. Disdain. This sentence was like a slap in the face. The Allied officers and soldiers who were originally grateful looked at each other angrily. Even Zhang Qiang had a dark face and warned, Team Leader Wang Ling, your coalition forces rushed to our base for emergency reinforcements and were the first to arrive at our base. We are very grateful. But can you show some respect to the Allies? Hey, can't I stop you? If you don't accept it, come out and practice. No need for the team leader to take action, I will. Shut up. What else did Sun Dehua want to say? After being strengthened at the intermediate level, although he was taught a lesson by Wang Ling and restrained himself a little, he still had a strong sense of superiority towards others, especially the Allies. However, after all, the occasion was not appropriate now. Wang Ling hurriedly interrupted him and explained embarrassedly, I'm sorry, everyone, this guy has been spoiled by me recently and has become a bit bloated. I will definitely teach him a lesson someday. Sun Dehua was quite unconvinced with other people now, but towards Wang Ling, he admired him from the bottom of his heart. Wang Ling said so, he touched his big head and had no choice but to shut up. This change in attitude could Erlu and the others were very happy. At this time, the captain said with a dark face, there is a conflict between our two armies. I admit it. You make fun of it, but I tolerate it. Who said you are the reinforcements? However, Agent Tanya is the hero of our allied forces. Is also the goddess of war in our hearts, please don't make fun of her. Am I kidding? Sun Dehua seemed a little aggrieved, but Wang Ling behaved very easily, that's natural, Agent Tanya and I are old acquaintances. This old acquaintance is true. If the two armies had not joined forces, Wang Ling would have killed that guy with his own hands. After being relieved, Wang Ling turned around and said with a smile, however, there is one thing that Sun Dehua said rightly. They are just a group of wild orcs, but they are just giving experience. As he spoke, Wang Ling waved his hand. Under his command, the more than 20 armed helicopters hovering in the sky quickly lined up in a row, deployed neatly, retracted their wings, and stretched out along the gun barrel seemed to be aimed at the group of wild orcs from a distance. The advent of armed helicopters has been around for some time, and there has been a video demonstration by Wang Ling. Armed helicopters in various war zones have also made great achievements one after another. Of course, Zhang Qiang and others have also seen this. However, this company of more than 20 armed helicopters were arranged so neatly and deployed like 20 cannons. This posture still made their hearts tremble. At this time, Wang Ling raised the enhanced version of the AK rifle in his hand and said with a smile, we are not fools. We knew the enemy's lineup and size from the electronic map in advance, and dared to rush for reinforcements based only on these troops. We are not fools seeking death. You have worked hard in successive battles, go and rest, and leave the rest to us. Can you guys do it? The captain still had some doubts, but Erlu suddenly spoke, and he choked back with one sentence, "If we can't do it, why don't you do it?" The captain was speechless, and Zhang Qiang nodded slightly at Wang Ling, agreeing with Wang Ling's approach. After smiling confidently, Wang Ling directly led Sun Dehu and others, together with several anti-aircraft crawlers, past a row of armed helicopters and stationed at the front. The defensive formation has already been set up. It is not as fancy as expected, just a simple position. This made the other Allied troops who were questioning and looking forward to murmur again. However, Wang Ling doesn't want to explain anything now. It's a mule or a horse, just pull it out and run around. Wang Ling and the others arrived here in a hurry. The conversation and deployment took some time. After all the defense lineups were put down, the group of wild orcs were getting closer and closer to this place. From the electronic map, observation shows that there are only less than 2 minutes left, and it feels like we are approaching the city. In the Allied base, all the officers and soldiers, including Zhang Qiang, could not help but feel a little nervous, but Wang Ling's eyes became brighter and brighter. Finally, after another period of time, the wild orcs in the front row officially broke into the gunship's bombardment range, and the bombardment began. Dong 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 dong. Boom 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 boom. Oh oh ho. Oh. Dong 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 dong. More than 20 cannons fired volleys. The visual impact of the scene was quite strong, and under the bombardment, the wild orcs in the front row fell in pieces. Among these armed helicopters, many 3-star elites were cultivated in the last battle. They were especially powerful in this situation. The rapid and powerful bombardment could beat these wild orcs to death, causing heavy casualties. Witnessing such powerful firepower, the Allied officers and soldiers who were still doubting at first were shocked. After looking at each other, their faces became happy again. However, this is just the beginning. After all, the wild orc army was too numerous. Although it was suffering constant losses, the overall force was still within the acceptable range. Withstanding the bombardment from the armed helicopters, the wild orc army forced its way in, and soon broke into Wang Ling's range. Inside. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh oh ho. Oh. But this intrusion immediately ushered in a nightmare. Wang Ling also opened fire. The firepower of his 7-star ace-level elite combat soldiers was simply synonymous with terror. The orc army was clearly very powerful. They scattered and forced their way into a large area, but Wang Ling didn't care about this at all. He started shooting from a distance with the gun in his hand. His reaction speed and shooting speed were so fast that anyone from all angles would be able to break into this range. Everyone within the range will be shot in the head and face by Wang Ling. Due to the powerful firepower, no wild orc can withstand it, and he will almost die if he touches it. For a long period of time, the screams of the wild orcs on the battlefield were heard one after another, and the entire hell of Shura. However, this group of wild orcs didn't know how to retreat at all, and they rushed forward like moths to a flame, rushing to die. And Wang Ling also accepted all comers. Although the number of these wild beasts is large, Wang Ling is not surprised but happy. To advance from a 7-star ace to a 10-star soldier, he needs a lot of military experience. In his eyes, these wild beasts are simply gifts. A boy. Boom, boom, boom. Boom boom boom. During this period, the row of armed helicopters also kept firing. In conjunction with Wang Ling's reaping and strafing, the entire orc army was unable to get close to the Allied base and was wiped out midway. The combat power was so strong, the troops were cleared so fast, and the firepower was so ferocious that they simply dumbfounded the group of Allied officers and soldiers at the rear. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 684. Hiss is so strong. What kind of monster is he, and why is he so strong? I thought his confidence was those helicopters, but I didn't expect that his own attack power is the strongest. This is simply outrageous. Although I hate to admit it, this coalition leader named Wang Ling does seem to be stronger than Agent Tanya. Bah! Agent Tanya is not here. There is no comparison between the two of them. Don't look down on our goddess of war. 2. Without special comparison, at least this coalition leader is indeed a bit too strong. Such a large area with hundreds of wild orcs is a disaster for us, but he is good, with only more than 20 orcs. The helicopter, and his own firepower, actually kept so many wild orcs at bay, making it difficult to get close. Ha ha ha, why are you so scared? Don't forget that we are friendly forces now, and they are our reinforcements now. That's right. I thought I was certain to die, but now it seems that I can continue to live and continue fighting. Haha, well done, coalition reinforcements. Witnessing this battle with their own eyes, the Allied officers and soldiers watching the battle exploded. If the combined firepower of more than 20 armed helicopters surprised them, the powerful firepower and combat effectiveness displayed by Wang Ling were enough to make them horrified. Many people could not help but take Wang Ling's weapon, comparing it with the war goddess in their hearts. However, after being frightened, this group of people also became excited. The stronger Wang Ling's combat effectiveness as a reinforcement, the greater their chance of survival. Looking at Wang Ling's current strength, it is obvious that it's because they didn't deserve to die today. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom, boom, boom. But Wang Ling didn't have much thought to care about the mood of these people. Now he was standing at the front, harvesting all the approaching wild orcs to his heart's content. More than 20 armed helicopters were also firing without any effort. Covered by powerful firepower, the originally black orc army became increasingly sparse, until finally they were all wiped out. Originally, the attack of hundreds of wild orcs was a disaster for the current Allied base. However, Wang Ling's arrival forcibly reversed the situation and killed all of them remotely without spending a single soldier. The wild orcs are so strong that they are simply a mess. The group of Allied officers and soldiers at the rear watched helplessly the entire process of the wild orcs being eliminated. In addition to being extremely excited, they also felt a slight chill in their hearts. As the biggest contributor to this blocking battle, Wang Ling just calmly put the rifle on his shoulder after the battle. He was not surprised by the outcome of this battle, but now he is still thinking about it silently. How much experience does it take for this elite combat soldier to be promoted from a 7-star ace to a 10-star soldier king? In this battle, he killed half of the wild orcs alone, which was nearly 200 in number, and they were all wild orcs. However, after gaining this large amount of military experience, his military level still showed no intention of breaking through. Tisk, tisk, the combat power is strong, but the experience required to advance is really huge. In the end, Wang Ling couldn't help but joke. After the teasing, Wang Ling also found that he was a little impatient. He had just been promoted to the 7-star ace. If he reached the 10-star soldier king so soon, wouldn't it be too valuable? No matter what, because of the arrival of the Wolf Group's vanguard army and its powerful combat power, they forcibly preserved the Eastern Plains war zone from being completely lost. Zhang Qiang also knew the significance of this battle. Although he was excited in his heart, he also sighed very much. He took the initiative to walk towards Wang Ling and performed a very solemn military salute. Team leader Wang Ling, because of my previous doubts, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. As powerful as team leader Wang Ling, he is indeed qualified to despise those wild orcs, and he is also qualified to be compared with our allied agent Tanya. Hey, isn't it? The team leader is so perverted, why are we just comparing each other? Erlu's sneaky words made Zhang Qiang feel embarrassed for a moment. Wang Ling smiled and smoothed things over. Captain Zhang Qiang, I'm overly complimentary. I have never had any intention of despising your army, otherwise I wouldn't have come to the rescue in such a hurry. Understood. Thank you very much, Team Leader Wang Ling. Zhang Qiang also smiled. This thank you was from the bottom of his heart and was not mixed with any hostility. After saying this, the last military salute was performed, and Zhang Qiang gave up. After he left, Sun Dehu started to complain, Team Leader, why are you so perverted? At least let us try our best. You were able to go head to head with the orcs, and I wanted to try too. Try it. Just give it a try. In a head-to-head melee fight, even I am no match for the orcs. Where do you get the confidence? Wang Ling glared back. Sun Dehu had really grown a bit recently. He couldn't survive without beating him. After being scolded, Sun Dehu could only scratch his big head, smile, and never mention the matter again. Wang Ling. At this time, General Li Weiqi's voice suddenly came over the radio. After hearing this, Wang Ling hurriedly responded, General. General Li Weiqi praised, I have seen the battle just now from the electronic video. It was a great job and showed the majesty of our coalition forces. Wang Ling had heard similar compliments more than once or twice, and he had long been immune to it. He made a casual remark, and then directly pointed out the main topic, General, let's not go further. The Eastern Plains war zone will suffer from this. In the final analysis, after all, it's the super weapons of the Soul Empire that are causing chaos. His Soul Empire has no bottom line at all and uses super weapons without any scruples. How long are we going to have to endure it? Well, that's what I want to say. General Li Weiqi replied, originally, after the joint meeting, our two armies were applying to the highest authority to use their respective super weapons, but the minds of those people were still stuck in the stage of fighting for hegemony, and they kept dragging on. Reply. We specially recorded the super weapon attack on the Eastern Plain and what happened after the attack, and sent it to the highest authority immediately to put pressure on us. And when those people saw the video, they obviously you are also aware of the seriousness of the matter. Just as you were on your way to the Eastern Plains war zone, the documents agreeing to use the super weapon have been issued. Now, we have dispatched a large number of engineers to build nuclear bomb silos and iron curtain devices at the headquarters. But it will take some time to complete and put it into use. I guess the situation with the Allies is similar to ours. Did you finally pass? It's not easy. Wang Ling shook his head, somewhat mockingly. General Li Weiqi continued, the Holy City war zone has been pacified, and we happen to have to move the battlefield. Now that something happened in the Eastern Plains war zone, and you happen to be there to provide support, PoortoRich simply moved our battlefield to the Eastern Plains war zone, and waited for the garrison in the Holy City war zone. After the officers and soldiers from the city war zone arrive, we will move collectively. During this period, the stability of the Eastern Plains war zone will be left to you first.